Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Peter Racey here from the Foundation Expo 88, and it is a Happy New Year, Sallyanne.
Happy New Year to you, Peter, and to everybody who's watching this.
Yes, we are kick-starting off the new year with one of the most interesting Lord Mayors I've had the privilege to work with over the years. And we are also here with the mini version of Continuous Division, made in Adelaide, as it happens, and transported up here, made by Greg Johns. And you know, you can refer to the series of YouTubes that we've done on it. And so, yeah, this is the first time you've seen this.
It is, and it's wonderful. It's just wonderfully tactile. You just want to touch it, and of course, it's a bit hard with the original because it was so big. But you know, this, you don't know whether this rust is dusty, rusty, and you can wipe it off. It just invites you to hold it.
It is amazing. The steel is a special steel. It actually is designed to rust, but it only rusts to a certain degree. Then the ingredients, the nickel and the cobalt inside it, stops it, well, you know, slows the rusting process down. I mean, it's just an amazing piece. And you know, when we originally were thinking about just how to celebrate the 25th anniversary, I thought we needed something concrete, and I am hoping that Graham does accept it into the Brisbane Museum as part of a small but permanent collection. So
well,
that
I should stop you there, Peter, because as chairman of the Museum of Brisbane, which is a standalone company, I can accept it. I should do so with great pleasure. And we don't have to ask Graham whether he would like it or not.
well,
so there you go,
good.
we can have it.
Yeah.
And it's just wonderful, not only as a memory, if you like, and a tangible memory of Expo, but it's wonderful as an example of the sculptor's art. And that's sort of not actually, well, I was going to say free form, but it's not free form because it's very intricately made in such a way that everything relates to everything else. And I think it will be wonderful for people to be able to see that up close and personal.
Well, I think it's to my way of thinking, we're in the 25th year. You know, having the Brisbane Museum and its, you know, new guys, and we're only maybe even 60 days away now, maybe. When's the actual formal?
The actual opening of City Hall is on the 6th of April.
Yeah, so you know, quite close. And it's nice to be able to have the Brisbane greeters take people around the city, but then have a reason to go up into the museum to see a part of Expo, even though it is the 25th anniversary. I just think it's a nice, you know, connection and good marketing for it.
Well, there'll be lots of things about Expo because our opening exhibition is about Expo. The opening exhibition for
that's
the,
from
for
Jeff
the
Mullins,
museum.
is it?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it is.
Who's actually Peter Denham, who's the curator, the director of the museum, is putting it together. But there's a lot of Expo material around, and it's really important, in fact, that we source all the material we can. I mean, you've done a fantastic job in what you have got, but I'm sure that hidden in lots of garages in Brisbane, there is Expo material that we hope people will bring forward.
And hundreds of great stories, because we've, you know, the Foundation Expo 88, under the leadership of John McGregor, has spent since 2004, believe it or not, collecting the stories, and I'm just Johnny lately, just on
and
the
in
spot.
fact, the hat and the coat that I wore to open Expo with the Queen is now in the Queensland Museum, so I must remember to ask them, perhaps we should have it back. Perhaps I can wear it again.
Well, funny enough you should mention that. I actually had printed out and brought along your speech, because everyone tells me that the best speech by a country mile on the day was yours.
Well, it was short, which had a lot to do with it.
Yes, and I've misplaced it, but that's besides the point. So we're here to talk about the legacy.
But actually, just going back to that speech, I actually wrote that speech that morning whilst I was having my hair done for the opening of Expo, because we had to keep it to 2 minutes or 3 minutes, which is very hard. It's easier to give a half-hour speech. And so I had something written for me, but I just wasn't sort of quite right. So I did it on a piece of paper, pencil and paper, whilst I'm under the blow dryer or whatever it was.
A world exclusive. That's good. That's what we want.
That's a world exclusive.
First time that's been known. So we're here to talk about the legacy of the thought process, because you can't talk about Expo 88 without then talking about the legacy, and the legacy really is Southbank, isn't it? I mean, the real long-term, real concrete, hard on-the-ground legacy is Southbank.
Well, that's the physical legacy, but I think the legacy of Expo is even more than that. And it does follow on from the Commonwealth Games, where it was the first big event that Brisbane had had. And I was in the council, I was a humble backbench alderman at that time, and people would say, oh, Brisbane couldn't possibly do the Commonwealth Games. Well, we did the Commonwealth Games well, but we were so organised for the Commonwealth Games that I thought that some of those sports facilities were going to be worn out, because they were ready well in advance of the games and being used. So that gave us that degree of confidence. And then the same thing was being said again before Expo. Oh goodness, how could Brisbane do Expo, a little country town? So there was a psychological benefit from hosting Expo. People in Brisbane who thought we couldn't do things because people had always told us so, that we were a sort of jumped up country town, we realised we could. Whenever I go anywhere in Australia, even now, people talk about their Expo experience, and part of the experience was coming to Brisbane and being surprised the fact that Brisbane could do it. And I remember a council bus driver saying to me during Expo that he never had to go overseas now because the rest of the world had come onto his bus. People had come to Brisbane for Expo, and he just felt he'd had this world experience, which he sort of hadn't had before. So, and the Expo site itself, of course, is unique. Nowhere in the world, nowhere in my experience, is there a site, was there an opportunity like that on the banks of a broad river, because we are a broad river and some rivers are quite narrow and little, and I won't name any names.
You'll upset those Melbourne lights if you do.
Exactly. But within walking distance of the CBD. And close to the railway line, and close to public transport. So it's a fantastic site, and it did deserve to be looked after properly.
And I think the last 25 years have seen just a constant reinvigoration, rediscovery, reinvestment of that. And it's one of the things I just wanted to touch upon is that you were taking the Commonwealth flag back to Edinburgh, weren't you?
Yes, yes, well, I was going to Edinburgh in 1986 because part of that whole Commonwealth government thing is that the mayor of the previous city hands over to the next city. So I was on my way to Edinburgh to hand over the Commonwealth Games flag. And we thought that en route we would go via Vancouver because Expo was being held there, and I wanted to see what Expo was like. I'd actually been to New Orleans in the lead up to Expo there as part of an American study trip. So we went to Vancouver, and one of the things that actually struck me was that they were in a bit of a panic there in July, August I think it was, 1986, because they hadn't got an Expo was happening, they had made no plans for the redevelopment of the site previously, and that was all being scrambled together, and a leading Canadian developer was in charge of that. His name was Stanley Kwok, and I said to him, would you come to Brisbane and give us your experience? So the end of that year, I think it was the end of that year, or it might have been early the next year, but I think it was the end of 86, we held a seminar in City Hall. We invited everybody in, particularly developers and people who were going to be interested in the site, just to talk about, the problems, the solutions, what we could do, but we just knew that was, shall I say, a sacred site. It is sacred to the city. It's a very, very important site. And of course, Peter, as you know, living on the edge of Expo, of the Southbank as I do, every day and every evening, I see the benefits of it. In fact, even during this holiday time that we're in at the moment, I was down there at the weekend, and people strolling along the promenade there along the front. It's just wonderful to see, and looking out over the river, and it makes my heart sing. And in fact, if people ask me about, what was my proudest moment in City, what my legacy, to me it is that legacy of Southbank, and that I'm privileged to be able to enjoy it every day of my life.
And that is primarily because of that seminar that you did have in City Hall, that then fleshed out and started to put on the table all of those key issues which have continued on.
The difficult one. And it made people think. It made people think, oh gosh, perhaps we should do something. And then of course there was all the dramas with the state government. I think I fought four state premiers over Expo because, as you remember, Joe Bjelke-Petersen had promised the people of Queensland that Expo wouldn't cost anything and that we would sell off all that land for private enterprise, to private enterprise for development, and what you would have had was an alternative CBD over there, pretty much like North Sydney is, which would not have been good for the city.
But they're also selling that for a lot of Brisbane City Council land. I mean, there was a
there was all that too. Yes, there was a fair hunk, and we did a lot of exchanging. So, and the council, of course, had all the infrastructure on that Expo site. You know, the roads and the water and all that sort of stuff. Council guys, council planners, council engineers had been working on that for years. So we had made a fair input into the success that was Expo in really the most basic possible way, underground as well as the vision from the top.
That's true. And with that, we just might stop this YouTube here, and we'll then come back and talk about the art, because I know that you have a particular passion in relation to some of the pieces. And with that, just hold on and good afternoon.